It was senior night in Provo, and the Cougars wanted blood. Good evening, and welcome to Saturday's Warrior, the channel where we talk all things BYU, Big 12, conference realignment, all of that good stuff. And so, if that stuff interests you, we ask that you kindly like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us grow, and we really appreciate it. So now, without further ado, let's get into tonight's game between BYU and Oklahoma State. It was the final game of the season, senior night for BYU, and they wanted revenge for what Oklahoma State did earlier in the season, really getting a surprise win over BYU and a pretty big win, pretty a decidedly big win against BYU. Fortunately, I was traveling and unable to watch that game, so it spared me that misery. But fortunately, I was around tonight and was able to watch this one. I don't think it was a major surprise. I think it was more or less what people were expecting from this out, the outcome people were expecting from this game. But nonetheless, considering how the last one went, you never knew, especially with the way that this game began. Both teams were turning it over, but BYU was making me a little nervous that we were going to get a repeat of ISU, that they had the turnovers a little bit. They were being a little bit wild. Now they did settle down, but and let me look. Where did they actually end up finishing on turnovers? With 10 overall, which is 7 fewer than what they had against Iowa State. But they've really got to clean that up. I think that's been an issue that's been consistent throughout the season. It looked like they were cleaning it up a bit, but I don't think, that's definitely going to come back to bite them as they get into stiffer competition once we get into both the Big 12 and then the NCAA tournaments. But OSU, man, their first 8 points, they were looking like BYU. They hit a couple threes, then their big man had a beautiful feed in from the top of the key. And it really, I just looked at it, I was like, man, they're playing BYU's game. Although that did make me think that if they really want to get out and run and gun and play at this fast pace, that obviously that would benefit BYU. One, because I think generally BYU has better three-point shooters. But then two, you're playing in Provo at higher altitude with BYU's home crowd. And so obviously I felt like that would benefit BYU over the course of the game, especially when you get to the second half. And it did seem like it did. Fusa looked like he struggled a little bit early on going up against a big man, which was surprising because we've seen him all season go up against bigger guys, at least taller and have that length. And he's continually fighting through double teams and able to still put it in. And so I was a little surprised, but then obviously he turned it on and had a monster game. So good for him. A couple things. I noticed that I feel like Robinson gets called Johnson a lot. I heard it tonight's game. I'm pretty sure it was the ISU game, the last one that I heard. And I remember when I heard it that I was thinking, I've heard them do it again. And I don't know if it was the same commentators doing it or if it's just coincidence or maybe it's just Robinson and Johnson are sort of similar. But I've heard them get mixed up several times now. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that or has a thought on why that is. But anyway, moving on to the second half, BYU was obviously, offense was flowing a lot better. They settled in, and as we alluded to earlier, that Oklahoma State perhaps getting a little worn down at the higher altitude, the fast pace. And what I loved was that BYU continued to hustle throughout that second half. Even when they were getting up really big, it looked like, there are guys that are always hustling, but it seemed like people were still pushing, trying to get to the ball, try to get those offensive rebounds. And even when they didn't come up with them, that they were right there in the mix of it. And so I love that effort. But I think BYU maybe started feeling like they were getting away with the game, running away with it a bit too soon. Would have liked to have seen them really continue with that huge lead and continue to build on it to the point where you get to put in, some of your deeper bench, especially your, I know we have another senior forgetting his name because obviously he doesn't play much, but make sure everybody gets a chance to play there on senior night. It's always a good sign when Trey Stewart is getting lots of minutes because the game is out of hand. So would have liked to have seen a little bit more, but nonetheless, you gotta give Oklahoma State credit for staying in that game, fighting, and really closing in and starting to put pressure on BYU. Well called timeout from Coach Pope in stopping some of that momentum and helping. I don't know what they did, but whatever they did to refocus and settle down, because after that, BYU was able to keep the game. I mean, they never put it fully out of reach, but until the last couple minutes, but they were able to extend that lead again and keep Oklahoma State from making even more of a run and getting it down to single digits, because then the pressure really gets on and you tighten up and things can spiral, as we've seen BYU on both ends of that already this season. So we don't want to see that again. Last thoughts, love seeing Puka Nacua back in Provo in the royal blue. Big fan, obviously. Great to see him and with his team or supporting his alma mater. And let's see. And I do just want to point out, as we were talking about senior night, I'm glad to see some of these guys have good nights. Spencer Johnson did well. He was all over, filling up the stat sheet, including turnovers. But, let's see. He had 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and 14 points. And then Jackson Robinson, a quiet 17 points. I mean, he was just looking smooth when he had the ball tonight. Several drives to the hoop. And, I didn't feel like we were hearing his name called a ton when he was out there. But when he had it, he was just, like I said, smooth. And, he was feeling it. He was taking some of those long threes. But, he was only 1 of 5 on 3, and he was still able to get to 17 points. So he looked good out there tonight. So, again, glad to see the seniors having big nights. And what a good win for BYU, a good revenge win. Let's keep in mind that they could be, with the way the bracket has comes out, and I will post this up here. The way the bracket is played out, that BYU will be playing the winner of Oklahoma State and UCF in the second round, which will be on Wednesday. So, and it's 11:30 a.m. Not positive if they put this in Central Time because I pulled this from Big 12. So anyway, so BYU could be getting another chance to play Oklahoma State, but I actually think I like that matchup, even though what Oklahoma State did to them the first time they played. Both times BYU played UCF, they were close-fought games, and they just had a huge win over TCU tonight in Fort Worth. So that was impressive. So they might, be feeling it right now. Although on neutral territory, you never know. Oklahoma State, like I said, they had tons of fight in them. And what was his name? That guy was out of his mind tonight. So you never know what happens in a rematch. I mean, again, it's just the nature of the Big 12. And that's why you really would have loved to have had that win against Iowa State and be playing in the 4 seed. That's one less game that you have to play, considering each of these games is almost a 50-50 chance that you win. So would have been great, but that's not the situation. Still got to be super proud of BYU for coming out again, expected to finish near bottom of the conference, and now they were competing for a double bye in the tournament, got the 5 seed. Super impressive, super excited to see what they do. I hope they get at least one win, if not a couple, and make a deeper run into Big 12 conference or a championship, and put themselves in a good situation going into March Madness. So anyway, what a good win. I'm glad it played out more or less how we were expecting, that it was a kind of drama-free night. And again, please like this video, subscribe, and go Cougs.